Hey guys, it's Will. So imagine a world where today's computational limits are shattered. This could unlock a lot of possibilities, and Rigetti computing is definitely a trailblazer in the quantum technology space, and it's at the forefront of this quantum revolution. However, there's been some recent market volatility, and it's definitely casting some shadows over Rigetti's stock performance or the quantum performance as a whole. There's some comments from industry leaders like NVIDIA CEO Jensen. He suggests that practical quantum computing may still be decades away, leading to some significant drops in the market. But today, we're going to talk about the current state of Rigetti computing and analyze its market position and explore whether or not we think it's going to stabilize, if it's a viable investment in the future, and let's get into it. So we're here on Rigetti stock. The first thing I want to look at here is obviously we're seeing that it was a low of $1 back here in November of last year, and then we saw it up to $21.42 just about 6 days ago. And that increase right there, if we look at what that gain was from down here to there, that was a 2,400% gain, a massive gain. So when we saw the stocks fall, what was 40% or what have you in that day, that wasn't something that, is actually that insane when you look at the massive gain that it's had. However, there's some things that are kind of nitty gritty that people don't quite realize. The first thing is I could look at any other stock. Like, let's take a big cap, large cap. This is a company like Amgen. This is a biotech company, which is an interesting one. They're actually using quantum computers to learn how to bind or bond peptide proteins. Anyway, you see how their chart pattern looks like this, and you see it's kind of like, you could say the S&P 500 or something like that, where you see it going up and down. And it's considerably consistent, and you might have swings down, but these swings that go down at most maybe 20 to 25% at most, and they usually happen over a period of maybe a couple months that they drop. So when we're talking about not hundred of billion-dollar valuations on the company, but just really a few billion, and you look at some of these swings that we're seeing with this company, it's not at a point where it's very stable. There's going to be a lot of volatility. Yes, we see this kind of uptrend happening, but these swings, like this swing down here, that's a 46% drop. Right here, this swing going back up to high was a 200% swing. And if we see it, for example, if it were to swing to go back to previous highs here, and we see that happen again, it would be near that 200% gain. And so the important thing to do whenever we're looking at these stocks is realize, first of all, the market is highly volatile. So you got to keep that in mind, okay? Now, the second thing that we want to look at, yes, it's looking like it has this trend, and it's looking like, oh, maybe it would bounce here. But there's also no indications. So the risk looks like less risk compared to what we've seen, right? But when we look at this chart, there's a few things you have to account for. This first drop that we're using as an indication that it is, actually bouncing right here. This drop was kind of an artificial drop that was because of the Fed announcement saying that they were going to have less interest rate cuttings than what people were expecting. So basically that triggered this big drop here in mid-December. And so that was a kind of artificial drop. Then you saw that same trend line acting as a resistance before continuing up. And so that's actually more of the real trend that we saw with Rigetti. And with this recent pattern break, now there's this is like less risk looking at the overall picture, but when you look at where it could continue, it's actually in a spot that's quite critical. The reason why is because it's bearish, it's below these there's no indication of recovery at this moment. There is some potential levels where we could see it bounce. For example, right here, this is a previous resistance, and it's at that previous resistance right now. So we'll have to see here how it reacts to this level. We were able to identify some of these previous resistances. You could see if I move this, see this previous resistance, there's also this previous resistance, which we identified, and we traded Rigetti. This was back in December, at the end of December, and we traded it based on that previous resistance, and we made a really great trade, and it did quite well for us. And then same thing up here. This was a previous resistance. This is when it was bullish, and when it broke above it, we continued to trade it, and when it bounced, we traded it, and we had some really good trades on Rigetti stock as a result of identifying that previous resistance as a support. And so when we look at it here, it is at this previous resistance, which is something to take into account. However, the stock does have a greater chance of continuing, like any investment, continuing in the direction it's going than reversing at this moment. But we'll see what happens at market open. We'll definitely have to see how this reacts on the technical side. Fundamentals and some of the news, as well as the financials. We went to CES 2025, and we got to talk with a lot of people in the quantum computing space and where they are now versus where it's been projected, or what people are saying about their current position as a quantum computing company, and that they're actually a lot further ahead than people might realize. And that's something to consider. The other thing is IO&Q was also there at CES, the event I went to in Las Vegas, where I got to hear them talk, some of the executives, about what they're doing, how they're working together, and what these companies are doing to tap into a massive research kind of team through hundreds of different research facilities, universities, companies, and the companies they're working with are not small. We're talking about getting tapped into. If we look at this, they're getting tapped into Google, Amazon Web Services. You can see it here, as well as Microsoft. And so that means that they are putting themselves in a position to essentially be used by more companies. There's also some big contracts we've seen, not just government related, but also related to companies that are utilizing them through Amazon and Microsoft and Web Services. It was very bullish outlook on how much more usage there was this year as opposed to last year. When we listened to IBM executives and some of the scientists and doctors that were working with these quantum computing companies. And so that part was bullish, but the thing that obviously needs to catch up is the earnings, because the earnings, they've been missing the earnings per share, their revenue, what we were anticipating. And this is actually funny because a lot of people, the segment that I went to at CES was called Quantum Means Business. So yes, they talked about quantum computing as the actual, how it works and what it's doing for the world, and how it has way more processing power than like GPUs, but they work in tandem with GPUs, and so it's not like it's going to replace GPUs, but that it's solving, just for example, like chemistry, you got on the top level the chemical reaction, but quantum computing could go and solve down to the ionic, the atomic level, and that's something that quantum computing can do that GPUs cannot. And so they talked about how they're plugging into certain businesses, and that they were saying that they're very excited to report earnings. Now, they didn't say we're going to beat earnings, but that was one statement that I thought was quite interesting, is that they were saying, oh yeah, and you guys will see in our upcoming earnings how things are doing. And they said it quite optimistically. Now, of course, they can't say we're going to beat earnings. They're not really able to say that. But the way that they said it on stage, when there wasn't a lot of cameras, when there wasn't a lot of people, I was probably like the only person in there that had a media pass, because there's no other coverage online from the quantum computing event except for on my YouTube channel. And so what I was seeing, and when the questions that we got answered from them, was that it was looking more optimistic on their earnings than what people were expecting. Now, aside from that, on the chart, I think we've seen a lot of these bounces happen. If you guys want to see me enter and exit trades at market open. Get to watch me trade live in our Stockmate community. It's the second link down below. We have a huge sale as we're entering this new year. So if you'd like to get close up and actually be a part of a community where we're trading live and you get to see how we do it, I would encourage you to check out that second link down below. For those of you guys that enjoyed, make sure to hit that like button. Do consider subscribing. Again, what we're looking at here is some high volatility that potentially, if it's going to bounce right now, would be the time, but we'll have to see how it reacts at market open. And I look forward to seeing you guys there. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.